Thank you so much. Please be seated. Aren't you happy? Aren't you happy that Florida is the #1 state for homeschool in all of these United States? You know, I've always been supportive of education choice, homeschool, empowering parents, but I have been even more firmer in my commitment to that as my wife and I have been raising our own young kids. And we have a daughter that's about to graduate from first grade. We've got a son that's about to graduate from kindergarten, and we got our youngest that's just finishing up pre-K 3. And when you think about education and your kids, as a parent, you know, the kids are in many ways an open book. And do you want to turn them over for 8 hours a day to some indoctrination factory that's going to be teaching? Of course not. And so you want to be able to have choice to be able to direct the education and upbringing of your kids. And so I am somebody that not only as a governor but as a dad stands with the rights of parents to make sure that their kids are getting a strong, solid education. And in the state of Florida, whether it's kindergarten, whether it's 8th grade, 12th grade, whether it's in our universities, we don't want any of the indoctrination in the state of Florida. I'm sorry. And you think about what's happened at some of these universities. You look at places like Columbia University, you look at Harvard University, and they basically let the inmates run the asylum. They can go and you can demonstrate in favor of Hamas, you can take over property, you can pitch a tent and just set up an encampment, you can take over offices, you can do all of that, and nobody suffers any consequences. Well, in the state of Florida, we had a couple of our universities where you had these Hamas people try to set up encampments at Florida State, at the University of Florida, and others, and that lasted about 15 minutes. They were kicked out, and we upheld the rule of law. But I think it shows what has happened in education in this country, because this isn't necessarily new for the universities. This is just something that's now been so brazen, because it's one thing to do whatever the fringe kook left causes and go out and, quote, protest. But when you're celebrating a terrorist group that was beheading babies, assassinating elderly people, cooking people in ovens, and that's the group that you want to align yourself with, and yet these administrations and some of these powerful universities are basically siding with these people, there's a sickness in education in so many parts of our country. And I can tell you my job as governor is to ensure that what we're doing in education, whether it's our choice programs, which we do include homeschool in and have supported homeschool families, whether it's school districts, private scholarships, charter schools, or our public universities, we want to protect the people of Florida from that intellectual rot. We want to protect the people of Florida from having an agenda shoved down their throats that they don't want. And that involves a lot of things. You know, we had to tussle with a company right down the street here that you may have heard of a couple years ago, because we think it's wrong to teach first graders that they were born in the wrong body or that their gender is a choice. That's not what we want to do in Florida. And we're happy to stand up and fight. But I'll tell you this, and I think it's true with our universities, but I also think it's very much true about what you're doing in the homeschool movement. Yes, education is about giving students tools to be able to make the most of their lives. And incidentally, you do not need to go to a traditional four-year brick and ivy college to do well in Florida or in America. People are getting skills in trade school. They're getting other types of acquirement of skills that are immediately marketable. I mean, here's the thing. When I was growing up, people said, you know, if you don't go to college, you're not going to be successful. And it was almost like this piece of paper was some magic thing. And, you know, I do think that we have some great universities in this country in spite of everything. I think in Florida, we're doing better than anyone, and it's cheaper in Florida than just about anywhere. But I also know that we have had a generation of students be told that it's fine to take out $100,000 in loans to get a degree in zombie studies, and somehow that was going to help you do well. That hasn't worked out well, and that's been a big burden on a lot of folks. So there's other ways where you could be successful. But I also think whether it's the university, whether it's K-12 education, preparing people for jobs is really only part of what education is. Because we are a republic, and we have a republican form of constitutional government. And our founding fathers understood that ultimately this stuff doesn't run on autopilot. We have a responsibility to provide our young people with a foundation to understand what it means to be a citizen of the republic, to understand how this country was founded and the enduring truths that our founding fathers pledged their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor to defend and to establish in this new nation. And so you're not only educating your kids and other kids to be able to be productive in the economy, which you're doing, and that's important. You're also creating a crop of citizens that are going to be essential in making sure that this country can preserve its freedom. Because the freedom is under attack in this country in so many different ways. And so some of the things that we've done, so for example, at our universities, you know, Florida used to require all students take a course in sociology. Now look, if you want to do sociology, I mean, fine, but why are we requiring sociology but not requiring American history or other classical subjects? So we in Florida, we got rid of the requirement that you have to do sociology, and we added a requirement for American history for all of our undergrads. The media did not like that at all. But think about it, why would they get upset about that? If this is such an important subject, then you wouldn't have to mandate. There would be people that would do it, right? And people would be crawling over. But really, it's very mushy, it's highly ideological, and it is not the type of academic rigor that we're looking for and that our founding fathers would have thought essential to be educating folks. So we've done that. Another thing we've done with universities is we have centers now at our state universities. Like at the University of Florida, we've established the Hamilton Center to focus on the Western tradition, to focus on being the premier place where students learn Western civilization. That's a lost art in most colleges and universities around the country. In fact, not only do they not want to teach students Western civilization and the building blocks of society, and to do that, you got to go all the way back to biblical Israel. You got to go back to before Christ. You got to go back to the birth of Christ. You got to go talk about the New Testament. You got to talk about how that has spread in Europe. You got to talk about the Enlightenment. You got to talk about all these different things. And a lot of those college universities don't want to talk about. What they want to do is they want to attack Western civilization. They want to uphold failed systems as the ideal, attack our founding fathers, demonize our history. So that's what we're fighting against. And so we have these things like Hamilton where they're bringing in scholars that are really serious about this. So you're going to be able to go, it's $6,300 a year in-state tuition. You're going to be able to go and actually study the foundations of what it means to be an American and to be a citizen of this republic. I wish that wasn't something that was noteworthy in this society, but it is. And in Florida, we're doing it right. And we're fighting back against the tide of ideological indoctrination and focusing on what really matters. We are pursuing the truth in the state of Florida in our education system. And another thing that we've done, and we're leading the nation on this, in the state of Florida, all tenured professors must undergo review every 5 years and can be terminated for poor performance. We believe in accountability in the state of Florida. You know, another thing we've done, so when I became governor, obviously there were things we knew we were going to do. For example, I said we're going to ban sanctuary cities in the state of Florida. So we did that, work with the legislature. We had certain things we knew. But, it's a big government. There's different types of systems. And so as we were looking at the university system, we knew there were things we wanted to do with Florida State and UF and UCF and all this. But there was a little liberal arts college in Sarasota called New College. And I didn't know much about it. Turns out it was basically like a Marxist commune, left of the left, all focused on ideology. It's supposed to be the top honors college in Florida, but in reality, it was just basically focusing on trendy leftism. And so, I'm like, okay, why are the people of Florida funding this? So either fix it or just shut it down. Well, the legislature, they weren't willing to fully shut it. So I'm like, all right, well, we're gonna get this in a better direction. So I appointed 7 conservatives to the board of trustees. They fired the president. They hired a conservative president. Yeah. They eliminated critical race theory. They eliminated DEI, and they eliminated the gender studies department. And they refocused the college's mission to be the top public liberal arts classical college, similar to like a Hillsdale College in Michigan. So now we're bringing in scholars to Sarasota from all across the country. I've got parents all across America that want to send their kids there. Think about it. I'm a big fan of Hillsdale, but if you're a parent in another part of the country, where would you rather visit in January, Michigan or Sarasota? I rest my case. So this is going to be something where you're going to have serious academic rigor. You're going to be pursuing truth. You're not going to have ideological fads. And we're going to be graduating people that can be leaders in our country. So there's not a state in this country that has done more to reform our universities and to get them focused on their classical mission than the free state of Florida has. And we are going to be better off as a result of that. Now, we can't wait until students are in universities. And so one of the things that I noticed was we are not doing enough in grade school from K all the way through 12 to teach American civics and to teach about the Constitution and to teach about all the things that make this country unique. So we did more civics in the schools, more requirements for high school. People actually do a test that's similar to a citizenship test when they graduate about civics knowledge. But the thing about it is I can sit here and tell you, hey, this is what needs to be taught. But you have to have teachers that really believe in this and really understand. And the reality is you can go to universities, most places, they're not teaching a lot of the stuff that really goes in to be strong in civics. And so we created a course in Florida. It's 50 hours. Any teacher can do, including homeschool teachers. You get a $3,000 bonus if you do the 50 hours. And we brought scholars in from Heritage Foundation and Hillsdale College and all these great places to teach about the building blocks of the American Republic. And it has a 90% favorable reviews from the teachers that have gone through it. Here's the thing, what I've noticed. The reason why some of these universities and some of these K-12 schools around the country don't want to teach about America's founding principles, because they know when people are exposed to them, they're infectious principles. people will want to make sure that our country is living up to those principles. That gets in the way of the left's political agenda. So they don't want to focus on American civics. They don't want to focus on the Constitution. So we've done more. And oh, by the way, we now have speech and debate, the #1 speech and debate competition state in the United States. Every school district, homeschool kids can do it, charter schools, you name it. And it's really important that people are being able to do that. So on issue after issue, and then of course our education choice, we are the #1 state for parent involvement in education in America. We are the #1 state for education freedom in America. We are the #1 ranked state for higher education in America. And of course, given all that, we are now again by U.S. News and World Report #1 overall in education in America. They did not want to rank Florida 1, I guarantee you that. In fact, when they ranked us 1, they did the write-up and they said, there's been controversial decisions made by Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida regarding it. And I'm thinking to myself, no, 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 no. When we're doing things like putting civics back in the classroom, when we're doing things like getting gender ideology out of the classroom, when we're doing things like ensuring parental choice and parental rights, those are not controversial with parents. Those are not controversial with taxpayers. They just say it's controversial because the media doesn't like it. But the media does not represent the values of the state of Florida. So we're doing what's right. So I think these issues that we're engaged with in education, I think they're foundational. I think if we, and look, Florida's leading the way. People are moving to this state because they know we have a better approach to education. I mean, I've met families that have moved from Oregon, from California. Who here has moved recently from other states? Where have you moved from? Oregon? Anyone moved from California? Yeah, California? Okay. We had a little debate with the governor over there a few months ago. Won't see him no more. Okay, now, who else? New York. Who's come from New York? Okay. New Jersey. Whoa, okay, I heard that. Washington State. Anyone from Washington? Look at this, all the way from the Pacific Northwest. See, we used to not get people from that far away, and now we do. So we're leading it, but it's important to the health of our society and the survival of Republican form of government. Because if you look at what's going on in D.C., first of all, they don't get anything done. But second of all, our government is so out of whack from what the Founding Fathers envisioned. They did not envision a permanent, bureaucratic, administrative state that would rule over us and impose its will on us without our consent. That was not what the Constitution created, and yet that's what we've had. And I think part of the reason it's gotten this way, I think 3 reasons. One, the decline of civics and understanding about how the Constitution is supposed to function throughout society. 2, I think it's a fact that you have Congress that doesn't utilize its power of the purse to rein in the bureaucracy like our Founding Fathers envisioned. But then 3, and most importantly, it's just a lack of courage. You know, people go up to Washington, D.C., they want to fit in, they want to be liked, they don't want to be criticized by the media, and so they don't do what needs to be done to be able to save this country's future. So we need some big changes throughout the country. Florida has shown a blueprint, and we really can be an engine for that as other states work to adopt a lot of the policies that we've done here in the state of Florida. So you're all a part of that, so thank you for really carrying the torch of freedom. And it's important to say that here as we go into Memorial Day weekend. Now, I hope you guys have a lot of fun at this convention. I hope all Floridians enjoy the whole weekend. By the way, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, We've waived all entry fees to state parks so you can go and have fun free of charge. We've got a big budget surplus. I don't need the money. You guys save your money. I don't know what to do with all this money. A surplus is so big. Cutting your taxes is one thing we're doing, but and other stuff. And unfortunately, having to build a lot new roads because we have so many people moving here. So I-4 is getting widened in Polk County and Osceola. We're doing Champions Gate. We're doing a lot in this area, I can tell you that. So we're doing all that. But as you do that, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope all Floridians enjoy it. And it's fun, and Florida's a great place to be over that long weekend. But think about the reason why we're celebrating Memorial Day. You know, as somebody that wore the uniform and served this country in Iraq, I am very mindful of the fact that during those conflicts, we lost thousands of our fellow service members in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And of course, we've lost many more thousands in conflicts from Vietnam all the way to the beginning of this country during the American Revolutionary War. And it's something that is important to commemorate. It's something important to realize the connection to their sacrifices to our ability to live in the free state of Florida. I used to go to Washington, D.C. from time to time, and there was a route that the plane would take going into Reagan National Airport that took you flush parallel to the National Mall. So if you looked out the left side of the plane, you saw sweeping up-close views of the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, the other monuments and memorials out there on our nation's mall, and even perched on the hill, you saw the beautiful U.S. Capitol building. And those are symbols that were really inspiring, that make you feel proud to be an American because they symbolize the principles and the ideals that have set America apart from every country thus far in human history. And I remember a lot of the tourists who first time going to D.C., they would look at it, take pictures, everything. You know, it was kind of a big deal. But what I realized after doing that trip a few times is, as awe-inspiring as those monuments were on the National Mall, those weren't the best monuments to this country's freedom or this country's heritage. All you had to do was look out the right side of the plane. You looked over the Potomac River. You looked and saw a series of small, nondescript monuments orderly arranged over the rolling hills of a place called Arlington National Cemetery. And I believed it then, and I believe it now. What those monuments stand for is the fact that you can have the best Constitution in the world, you can have the best Declaration of Independence in the world. These things do not run on autopilot. They require every generation of Americans to step up and defend freedom when it's threatened. Sometimes that means putting on a uniform, and sometimes that means giving what Abraham Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion for service to this country. We would not be here today enjoying the lovely free state of Florida if people before us had not been willing to give their lives so that we can be free. So I hope as you go into Memorial Day weekend, you understand the connection to their sacrifices and to our freedom. What you're doing is important. What we're doing in Florida is important to make sure that we preserve what George Washington called the sacred fire of liberty. This is the fire that burned in Independence Hall in 1776 when 56 men pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to establish a new nation conceived in liberty. It's a fire that burned at a cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, when our nation's first Republican president pledged this nation to a new birth of freedom. It's a fire that burned on the beaches of Normandy when a merry band of brothers stormed the shores, defeated the Nazis, and preserved freedom throughout the world. And it's a fire that burned at the foot of the Berlin Wall when a resolute president stood in front of that wall and said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." eventually leading to the destruction of the Soviet Union. This is our responsibility, this generation of Americans, to preserve that fire. It's not a responsibility we should run from. It's a responsibility that we should welcome. I can tell you this, as long as I'm standing watch over the great state of Florida, we will stand strong, we will do what's right, and we will make sure that the best days of this state and this country are yet to come. Thank you all. God bless you. Enjoy your convention. We appreciate you very much. God bless you all. Have a good one. Thank you.